Welcome everyone to the SeatStory Cup 6. I'm Noxious, and with me on the casting couch are Raven and Admirable, two lovely guys with which I've casted before. So I'm hosting this, apparently I'm in the middle, but you guys forced me to do so. We're live from Krefeld, Germany. You've seen the Dank already, like carousel on screen. Would you like to ride it?
Yeah, I would. I'm a big carousel rider myself. As a young child, I remember my grandfather would always take me to carousels, and I said, you know what? I love carousels so much. This has become a passion of mine to ride them. And since then, carousels have really died out.
They kind of have, yeah. They really have over time.
It's very rare to find them. So
it is.
I've directed that passion into Hearthstone, into beard growing, and into admiring Raven as well.
I mean, a lot of people have that kind of passion, actually, about admiring me. But yeah, if you disappear later, we'll know exactly where you've gone. We'll know where to find you, so we'll know you're safe. And that's the main important
Carousels
thing.
are quite safe.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Anyway, we've got a lot of games for you guys today. This is going to be an event spread over 2 days. We've got a pool of players A and B. There's also a B stream ongoing while we'll be casting here on the main stream. On the main stream, that is, we've got, it's going to be Take TV, I think, Black on Twitch.
Yeah.
If you guys want to check that stream out at the same time to see what the games are going. For the first match of the day, we'll have Savjz and Strifecro. Now, the format is going to be a last hero standing, best of 5, I think, with one ban.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. So it's just a typical last hero standing format for SeatStory Cup. It's one of the few tournaments that always runs in last hero standing.
Yeah, it's very traditional to sort of that initial Hearthstone that we had,
Right.
where everything was last hero standing. And it's kind of gone away from a lot of the tournaments that you see. But seeing it here at SeatStory Cup, I think it's a really like a throwback feel almost, where it's a tremendous group of players that are here. I mean, just in Group A alone, we're seeing Savjz and Strifecro, Hafu and Torek are in this group as well. But we have 7 other groups, and it seems like every single one of these is just as stacked as the last.
Yeah, and speaking of Hafu, we haven't seen her compete in a long time in Hearthstone. It's kind of nice to see her doing her return here, or making her return. On the screen, you see the groups A to D, so Savjz, Strifecro, Hafu, Torek. They're all split, so it's A, B, C, and D on the screen. I'm really happy to see Hafu come back. I mean, I want to see how well she's prepared for this.
Yeah, and I was actually speaking to her earlier, and she said that she's put in as much practice as like humanly possible into this tournament, playing tons of Constructed lately. So she's as prepped as she can be. And you know, look at all the other groups, as you were saying, Admirable. Every single group is stacked in one way or another. Group B, 6-0, RDU, JJ, Kevek, like. Who do you even pick out of all these to even guess at making it through?
I mean, this is one of the tough ones. To me, I look at the groups, and this might be the group of death right here. And it seems to be that every single time 6-0 is one of those groups, that's a candidate for it because he's just one of the best players in the world. But RDU, 2 DreamHack wins. Super JJ had a fantastic 2016 year. I mean, can he finish it off with a big win here at SeatStory? And then looking at Group C, this is kind of like the return of the big names here at SeatStory.
Yeah, it is actually a very traditional lineup with Forsen, Ecop, and Amaz having been around since the beginning. AK Wonder as well. Sorry, who did very well in the last SeatStory Cup, the 4th, that is.
Yeah.
Not the 5th. Did pretty well there. Group B, like, I just want to go back there, but these 3 players at the top there have had an amazing run, like, this year. Kevin, however, less so. We don't know much about the player. And I talked to him, and he feels a bit like the underdog. And he says that he's got nothing to lose, effectively, just being in the group.
Yeah, and you know what? You can't really blame him. I think, like, almost anyone in the world would feel like an underdog in that group, right? Like, oh, yeah, you know, I've gone to a group with 6-0, RDU, and JJ, but I'm feeling like I'm the best player. I'm going to take it very easily. I don't think anyone in their right mind would go in with that approach, but I've known Kevek for a while, actually. He's a strong player, 100%, but he's just, you know, edging to get that breakout performance that pretty much every player goes through that stage where they know they can do it, but it's actually performing at the event, right?
Yeah, this is really the big statement for him is if he can come out of this group with an undefeated record, that would just be incredible.
Yeah. So on the 4th group, we've got Gara, Kamlan, Mr. Yagut, and Pavel. So these players we've actually seen quite a bit. Gara yesterday said he wanted to win another major, told me that, and I think this could be an opportunity for him to do so. Again, it is a format that he's familiar with. Last Hero Standing is one that he's played probably more than a lot of the players in the scene that might be newer to the scene. Pavel, world champion we got this year, so this is not the guy you want to be going up against in your group.
Certainly not. Pavel's had an unbelievable record in the last 2 years. I mean, the fact that he had the story of being 1 round away from BlizzCon in 2015 and then winning the World Championships in 2016, that's just such an incredible feat to be having that sort of consistency. But my concern for Gara in this one is he hasn't really been feeling that well the last few days. He was a little bit under the weather. So if he can come into this one 100% focused, I think he's got a good shot at this one. But Mr. Yagut, this is a guy who has mostly been a ladder warrior. This is one of the first big tournaments that we've seen him in.
Yeah, and he's, extremely well known for his rogue play. But I think the real test for a player like Yagu in tournaments like this, he was at DreamHacks as well. But, can he play in a tournament format that requires you to play more than rogue? And we all know he's an exceptionally good player, but a general perception issue might be that, well, he can do well with that class, but can he do well with everything else? But we'll find out. But you can see the players getting ready now. As we said earlier, it is going to be Savjz versus Strifecro.
You know that Strifecro's playing a mobile game right
Yeah, definitely. It's like Candy Crush. let me mash those 3 right before I can go into my Hearthstone game. The admin on the other side is actually taking care of his work for him.
Yeah, I was actually really happy and sort of self-justified when I found out that Strifecro is just as big of a mobile game whale as I am. When we talk about these games, every time he shows me something, it's like every couple of months he shows me a new one. Like,
he's dumped like cool. $2,000 in each of these one at a time.
No, I've never spent that much on a mobile game. Noxious.
Come on, Noxious.
Yeah.
This isn't a real game.
The types of players who would just look at a mobile game for 2 minutes, play one small game of it and be like, I like this, take my money, just to get ahead. I know what you're like, Admiral.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
That's me, definitely. Savjz looks really focused on this one, though. I've been really liking the play from Savjz lately. Since Mean Streets has come out, we've seen him hold #1 on ladder live on stream with no delay for a couple hours in a row, and that is astonishing.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to the fact that he was playing some of these
he looks
decks
focused and tired now. He's like,
that's the thing of focus is your brain needs that oxygen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need to breathe in as much as you can. But yeah, he's been playing a lot of Reno decks on stream, and I think those are the types of decks where getting stream sniped is a big deal, but ultimately the deck is so solid in general when they're well built that you can still navigate matchups fairly well because the tools that you have at any point are just able to answer everything.
Yeah, plus if you're stream sniping someone with Reno and you're not that good of a player, you just really have no idea what they're going to do. So you're probably just playing it wrong anyway. Yeah. I actually was thinking about this the other day. I was talking with Firebat about it, where Chansu had made a play at the World Championships where we could see the hands. And both of us were like, we would not have done that. Chansu, that is just sick. That guy's nutso. And that's sort of what it feels like to be watching a lot of Reno players, where you'll have similar styles of play and they'll end up at the same place, but they take very different roads to get there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the strengths of Reno decks in general. I mean, we can't really speak of the metagame without talking about some of the more aggressive decks out there, but in general, I'd say that Reno is still kind of towering as the almighty control deck, and it's kind of the deck to beat.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the main thing from Reno, Reno's always been in and out there for quite a while now, but with some of the additions from the new expansion, it's got so many more defensive options, and then just Kazakus, basically. And if you can get even Brian Kazakus out, you just open up just completely new win conditions more than anything. The amount of times versus you can see the more aggressive warrior decks where you just turn 4 Kazakus, and then turn 5 potion where you have the 4 damage AoE and then resummon minions. You pretty much can win off the back of that, which is kind of crazy.
Something I've really noticed is a lot of strong players are actually choosing the 1-cost potion from Kazakus. And the 1-cost potion to me is really interesting because it actually increases the consistency of the card. It doesn't have the polymorph element available in the 1-cost options. So when that happens, you're more often seeing damage directly to a minion. You're more often seeing AoE damage to a minion. And I've seen Dude, for instance, he was branding Kazakus and picking 2 1-cost potions, and he would find himself grabbing 3 damage, then 2 damage to all minions. So he's killing an Emperor for 1 mana, or he's killing a Sylvanas for 1 mana, and making these huge tempo swings with Kazakus potion. And I think that's a really interesting facet to the deck because normally it's very heavy at the top end and you have a lot of greedy cards.
Yeah, and you have to compensate for that by having that one-cost potion. What's interesting, too, about Kazakus to me is, kind of the math on it, right, that people figured out. It's the odds of getting the AoE damage when you go for the 1 is actually, slightly higher. I think you have 18 less options or possibilities off of the potion combinations. And that's just the edge you need with a brand deck. That's one of the big things.
Yeah, and there's even not just Reno Lock that's, becoming more and more popular. Even Reno Priest with either dragons or actually just more combo variants. In the Malaysia Major that happened last weekend, one of the players called MV who actually got, I think, top 4, and he used just a Reno Priest, and it felt like all the weird combinations of Priest cards you can get. He was using Velen with some burst damage. He had a pint-sized potion, and then Shadowword Horror to just clear a board.
Oh, wow.
That's beautiful.
It's really powerful tools.
Something
it's crazy.
And it's something about this match in particular. I do want to talk about these two guys a little bit more because there's so much history between these two and just them in
so
general.
Much history in this tournament.
Yeah, exactly. and Strifecro, when he was talking about this earlier with Hafu, he said that he had actually practiced for this event more than any event prior to this one. So this is the most practiced Strifecro that we're seeing to date in this SeatStory, and all of these Reno decks are prime for the taking. These are decks that Strifecro loves to play, the long-term grindy decks. Like Reno Mage, absolutely a deck that he could very easily bring to this tournament.
Yeah, and also both these players are previous SeatStory champions as well. So they're both 1-1. I think it was SeatStory, was it 1 and 2?
1 and 2 probably,
Yeah,
because I don't think Savjz has been to the quote-unquote recent SeatStory since the 4th with the new studio.
Yeah, I think Strifecro won the first one and Savjz won the second one. So it's kind of cool to kick off SeatStory number 6 with 2 previous champions playing it out.
Just couldn't be any better. And again, these are like the 2 Reno players. So this is like a buckle in, get ready for the 5-set
I'm glad this
games.
couch is comfortable.
Oh, it's
We're going to be here for a while.
Yeah. I want to know, though, if any of them brought Rogue, because I think it's one of the most unspoken powerhouses of the metagame. Rogue is kind of the, according to a lot of players, one of the reigning classes right now, but it doesn't feel like that because people expect there to be a bunch of aggro shaman, aggro warrior, Reno luck, but when you look at it, Rogue really has everything.
Yeah, that's where the ban perspective really adds that element of lineup building to the tournament, where if you're playing on ladder and you play Rogue, you could very easily just run into a shaman with 2 lava bursts and 2 jade lightnings, and suddenly you're off to kind of a bad start. But if you can ban away shamans from players, Rogue becomes a very powerful deck versus Druid. Druid becomes more popular because you can ban shaman as well. That's obviously a terrible matchup for Druid. And when you're trying to fight these long endgame combos, that's kind of where Rogue shines. It has those combos usually available a little bit earlier, and their card draw is more reliable when they're not under a ton of pressure. It's easier for them to snag tempo and really get into it.
So I think we're getting into the game at the moment, or just playtesting. Just want to make sure what I'm seeing is right.
Yeah, we're trying to get these players set up in Spectate and make sure that we have everything settled in. So as soon as these guys are ready for the game, we're going to be hopping into it.
Yeah.
I would love to see what their bans were for this matchup, because again, with 2 greedy players typically in their style, I would venture to say that there's going to be some weird bans because of that.
Yeah, I think one of the things about Reno Mage, we're talking about Strifecro and Reno Mage. One of the interesting things about Reno Mage is a lot of people say that the deck is worse than Reno Lock, but I think that's largely because a lot of the ways that the deck was built didn't contain enough burn to give them a combo win. Whereas if you go for the Archmage Antonidas burn route, without Ink Master, and you just go for the straight-up spell build, then you can still get those OTKs a little bit more realistically.
Yeah, honestly, the thing that was most interesting to me was that Ink Master Saliev really not a card that is fitting into the build very well.
Yeah.
It's like, how often do you need to play a 7-mana 5/5 and then get a spell for free?
Yeah,
surprisingly rare.
The only times I've ever seen it actually work well when I've played against it is when they've just Kazakus into 10-mana potion, right? And they just want to do something. Either a lot of the time it's the direct damage, like the 8 damage and summon an 8 or something along those lines. But you're right. Other than that, I've seen it had very mediocre effects at best.
I think that's what she was made for. She was made to work with Kazakus more so than anything else, which is kind of the general trend with those cards. All right, so apparently we're going in. We've got Strifecro on the Reno Lock and Savjz on the Reno Lock. Savjz on the Reno Lock and Strifecro on the Druid. Oh man, Strifecro on Druid. That brings back memories.
Yeah, this is like his golden class. It's like when the game was first getting underway, Strifecro was the guy who first played Force Nature Savage Roar. Yeah. Strifecro was the guy who first teched in Baron Geddon to handle aggro decks. Strifecro was the first guy to really utilize Double of Ancient War to buy yourself time to get to endgame. This guy, when it comes to innovation, was the leader in Druid.
Yeah, a long time ago that was the case. These days I think it's more about the Jade Druid stuff, so it's a very different type of deck than the combo decks that Strifecro used to play a bunch of. And he also isn't playing a Ram Druid necessarily, which also was something that he popularized a long time ago.
Yeah, we can also see here as well, Savjz going for the Kazakus like without Brand, because in a lot of late game matchups you want to save it and then get the double potion off. But the problem is versus Druid, like Reno Lock can't normally keep up if the Jade Golems keep cycling, because they get too big, they just don't run enough huge board clears. So it looks like Savjz is just going to go for the potion now. I didn't actually quite see which one he picked. It's really weird. The spectate mode doesn't show the the selections as they're taken.
Yeah, so this is like a really interesting one. So there we can see summon a 5/5 demon and draw 2 cards. And I love the attack here from Savjz. He's got to get aggressive because, as you mentioned, Jade's going to scale super heavy into the end game. So Savjz, it's important for him to actually be the aggressor in this matchup and take the lead as soon as he can.
Yeah, this is a pretty important thing to do, exactly, because Jade Druid is notoriously good at just scaling up quickly, especially when they're getting Jade Golem early. For this time, though, Strifecro didn't get a crazy Jade Golem start. He did get a bunch of ramp with the Jade Blossom as well as the the wild growth, but he didn't find, a way to get those Jade Golems to 4/4s or 5/5s by 6 mana, which is kind of what you want to do in this type of matchup. Because yes, you can scale well, but you still need to put the tempo in.
Yeah, I guess like once I found at least once you hit like 4
Yeah.
as a 4/4, everything after that feels so much powerful. Like,
You mean free 5/5s are
Yeah.
good, Raven?
no, you know what I mean. Like once you hit the 4, like all your J Golems before that are quite insignificant
Right.
in the matchup overall. But once you hit that 4/4, it just jumps massively. There's no like average scaling. It just goes straight up to super impactful in the game.
Yeah, and that's just the nature of cumulative effects, is that they're going to get huge. And Strifecro choosing to make sure he's continuing to dig, using Living Roots, taking out this Kazakus. He can't be under too much pressure himself. And his hand, honestly, is probably going to have a tough time getting through this when you look at Savjz's hand. He's got Blast Crystal Potion, he's got Siphon Soul, and he's got some gas to back this up.
Yeah, he's got the 2 destruction effects that are in Reno Lock as spot removal with Blast Crystal Potion and Siphon Soul. Blast Crystal Potion, a card that I think a lot of people underrated when they first saw it, even though it just seemed super powerful at first. 4 mana, you destroy anything you want. You lose a mana crystal, but that's no real big deal when the deck is meant to scale up into the late game.
Yeah, that's such a huge one, too. I mean, 4 mana, like, at the end of the game, it basically has no drawback.
Right.
Yeah, and it's so flexible in you either normally use it late game without the drawback effectively, or you use it on turn 4 or 5 to kill a Flamely Faceless, a Mountain Giant, even a Twilight Drake, depending on what the game looks like. So then you're okay with going to Crystal down because you've just took down a huge threat that they got out so early.
If it's something you otherwise die to,
Yeah,
I would
it's
much
pretty
rather
decent,
sacrifice
yeah.
a mana crystal, personally.
No, I want my full mana. I will die and concede. It's fine.
So Savjz's going to go for the tap here
Oh.
and picks up Mountain
Yes,
Giant.
rewarded. Wow, very handsomely there. Definitive Argus in Strifecro's hand. By the way, I don't think I've seen much of that in Druid. I haven't really spoken about that.
And Strifecro draws Mulch right off the back of this, too. So his turn looking like it's a little bit set out in front of him with the Azure Drake and Mulch on the Mountain Giant. And that's also going to overdraw Savjz by a card. So that was a really big pickup for Strifecro right here, where otherwise he might have lost this game without that.
Yeah, and especially now he's gone into the Innovate, so next turn he can go Gadget Zan, Innovate, he has Swipe available to him as well. See what Savjz gets.
Does Reno die for this alley cat? No, it doesn't.
Yeah, okay.
That's a big piece, though.
Yeah, combo piece. The deck does run Faceless Manipulator, Leroy Jenkins with the Power Overwhelming for the 20 damage combo. So it is pretty important to have all the pieces. Against Druid, perhaps less so, as you can try to contest the board if you're early enough. But now that your biggest threat on curve was taken care of, it's going to come down to a much grindier game.
Yeah, and here you can see Savjz like throwing a nod at that grindier game as well. He kind of lost the position of being the pure aggressor here. So using the Twilight Drake to continue to clean up board and getting value from the Brand and Earthreigning Farseer, he's trying to set up that position again where he can start being aggressive. It's very key for him to deliver that damage. Otherwise, Strifecro's eventually going to scale out of it.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to as well, once the golems get bigger, it'll be like Blast Crystal Potion on the first big one, Siphon Soul on the next one, then hope I kill him after that, because he's just not going to survive long enough if he can't finish the game. And losing the Power Overwhelming is actually a big deal because it's just so much extra reach.
Yeah.
He can still get on from Peddler, so there's still a chance.
Yeah, it's
But
one of
it's
those
still
really
kinda
big
rough.
problems, right? Because you've already played Kazakus without Brand, so you're not getting the double Crazy Potion play. You've expanded the Mountain Giant. Now, maybe he's running Jiraxxus in the list. We haven't seen it. Some people have opted to cut it out of Reno Lock.
Yeah, Savjz strikes me as a player for this tournament who would cut it, anticipating a lot of people to be very aggressive in terms of their approach to the tournament. And Jiraxxus is a card that will thrive in long games and suffer in short ones.
And also as well, it's not that great in the mirror because you feel like you can never play it if you've not seen any of the combo pieces, because you normally just die if you try and play Jiraxxus out too early in the Reno mirror. And I don't think there's going to be... it'll be interesting to see actually, but in this tournament, is Reno Lock even a deck you could think about banning out? Because then you open yourself up to like so much other stuff.
Yeah, tough turn here for Savjz, as he's got to take care of the Auctioneer, but it's going to leave him very little to be doing afterwards. I'm curious to see where his thought is, because now he's down to 18, so he's starting to approach this life total where if Strifecro can turn the corner a little bit, or even if he's just got like double Feral Rage in hand, that is a lot of burst opportunity. And so very clearly just going to try to use his tools to stabilize himself, and I think this is really smart. Any amount of minion pressure is pretty good versus Druid, kind of regardless of its size. It's just you've got to get the lead.
Yeah, going wide with mid-range minions against Druid has always been very potent, so no exception there. Now, Strifecro, looking at a hand that isn't exactly you know, filled with options. I think the Fandral pickup here with Nourish is something he could consider if he wants to maybe play something off the top, as it will leave him with 3 open mana crystals for Feral Rage.
Yeah, it gives him the Feral Rage, I think, is the big key.
Yeah, and just a cycle, because at the moment, anything he plays, you know, the Behemoth, the Ancient of War, will just open up value trades for Savjz. He's got so many low health minions anyway. He's just like, yeah, great, you play 1 minion, I'll kill it and develop again.
Exactly. It almost doesn't matter. Now, Strifecro with 2 Jade Jade cards in hand, the Jade Behemoth as well as the Jade Idol can give him a bit more ramp.
And the Spirit that makes the best entry noise ever.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, I actually really like the Jade Idol here. He's free to clear off the Twilight Drake with this and with the 1/1 and the hero power here. And this is going to start filling his deck up with Jade Idols. So now when he draws Jade Idols, he's free to couple it with these expensive cards in his hand and really start to take a board lead.
Yeah, this is you know, the turn or two leading up to the Jade Druid getting out of control for Savjz here. So Savjz really needs to start planning out how he can end this game quickly, and it's going to be difficult because you never want to leave Fandral alive just because of the options it opens up for the Druid. And he's going to have to try and kill Fandral and put the pressure on and try and build up some kills here.
Xaka's Potion will help that, though.
Yeah. Not the most impactful potion in the world, though. Just a 5/5 draw 2.
It's good enough. It's
pretty
2 life
good.
taps bundled in with a 5/5. So think of it as a Jirax's hero power with 2 life taps. It's not too bad.
I expect nothing less from you, Nox. You can always explain whatever happens in the way of, well, if you add these 4 cards together and minus this effect off, you get this exact
this.
Well, it is really similar to like Jirax's hero power and Arcane Intellect.
Yeah.
Like on one card.
That's kind of what happened. Yeah.
I love the way your mind works in that regard. An Alley Cat going to hit the board as well.
Yeah.
So
what's playing an Alley Cat like? That's kind of combination of
Living
cards
Roots.
can you...
That's what it is.
2 Wisps.
2 Wisps. Please no. It's like Murloc Tiny Fin, right? It's got to try. Double Murloc
okay.
Tiny Fin. There we go.
And this is the exact position that Strifecro wants to
that is
avoid.
beautiful.
Is just playing against a wide board position. Druid does not fight well from behind unless it has pretty much exactly swipe. We've seen him down a swipe already this game. Now he's starting to get under pressure. Savjz is starting to scale into his endgame, which is just having tons of options in hand. I don't know if Strifecro has a realistic way to establish himself in this game. I mean, he can play a lot of minions, but what do they actually do?
Yeah, he hasn't seen Siphon Soul, he hasn't seen Blast Crystal Potion, nor, you know, a Shadow Flame play.
Yeah, I think he needs to just go heavy on the Jades now. He can just play both the Behemoth and the Spirit if he wants to. If he wants to weave the hero power, he can just play the Idol instead. I think he needs to just build up the board, hope some minions stick, and then use double Feral Rage to just kill Savjz. Like, I think that's the only real out here, because nothing's gone quick enough for him, and
So just-
Savjz has got a huge hand.
Like kind of just playing for the second swipe here and hoping that you draw it and push 12 from you.
Pretty much,
Okay.
yeah. I think he just has to at this point.
I mean, I'm totally okay with that.
These are a lot of threats to deal with, right?
Yeah, he's adding a ton of power to board.
Oh! Good work, team.
Yikes.
The Shadow Flame.
That is
perfect.
a hot draw.
Hey, that 5/5 demon looks like it's gonna pull off a pretty nice Shadow Flame.
I'm
here.
curious if he can actually ever justify the Faceless Manipulator or the Shambler this turn with it, and it looks like exactly where he's going. So he's probably going to float a mana this turn, but his board presence is just insane.
Yeah. The thing as well is because he can do the big heavy clear this turn, it's not like he has to rely on getting Emperor, getting Leroy, and doing a big burst. Like, he's just going to kill Strifecro through having a full board at this point.
What's it like when you Shadow Flame this whole board?
Sergeant
it's
Sally
like-
with Powerful Whelming.
Oh my God.
That's one of my favorite combos too.
Yeah.
I'm sad it's not actually in the build.
I really hoped that people would try it out, but it's, again, like only working with 1 card, or Peddler if you get a bit...
It's such an important card too.
The issue is just the combo, right? Like, you know, everyone's playing Reno and using the Leroy combo as, you know, so much damage, win condition, then to use it on Sally is probably not good enough.
And he's actually using the 5/5 freshly played just so he can push the damage, and I think this is wise as well.
Yeah, he doesn't need, what does he need the taunt for, right? Like, absolutely nothing. You may as well get the extra damage in, and already, even with just a combination, if you look at the Hellfire in hand, there's actually a good amount of damage just straight away, even for Savjz, without the Power of Whelming, without the Leroy.
Yeah, and Strifecro with the Azure Drake draw, I think it's desperate times call for desperate measures here.
Yeah.
He's drawing for the swipe.
Yeah.
I'm feeling kind of, you know, it's kind of interesting because we saw Savjz lose the Power Whelming, being forced into playing the mid-range beatdown against the Druid player. But Strifecro didn't get very big Jade Golems early. Like, if the game had gone a little bit quicker on the Druid side, I think Savjz might be the one who's buried under threats, but...
Yeah, sort of more and more I've been seeing Jade Druid played, the more I've been seeing Jade Idols actually used, like on turn 1.
Yep.
And it's sort of a weird investment, but to me it reminds me a lot of like the Paladin hand buffs, where you play it early on so that way all your other Jades benefit from it. You don't necessarily have to get this insane end-term value with Jade Idol. A lot of times you just need to get something from it.
Yeah, exactly, and that you don't even play it for the 1-1 really, right? You just play it so the next one's a 2-2, you know. And as you said earlier, you know, when you get to 4 or 5, that's when your impactful turns are going to be. You know, once you've got a board with a 9, 9, 10, 10, 11, 11, like, yeah, you probably won the game. Like, who cares?
Looks like lethal here: 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So yeah, 12 damage on board with Siphon Soul and Blast Crystal Potion.
So 10 mana, 2 minions killed. That's like a double assassinate in a Reno deck. That's pretty crazy.
Oh my god. Can you keep this up all day? That's my question. And what's scary is I think you might be able to. There's the challenge.
There's enough cards in the game.
There's enough cards in Reno Lock to make everything look similar, though. Honestly, Reno Lock's gotten so much more powerful because it's got so much redundancy compared to what it had before.
Yeah, and that's what wide card pools do. As you get new cards, you get more options. And since redundancy is such a big facet, that's what Mean Streets really gave this build, was something to do. And I think Kazakus was such a big factor of that too. In that game alone, the Kazakus potion gave him 10 damage. It gave him a target for a Faceless Shambler, which gave him a Shadow Flame, which wiped the whole board. Getting just a 5/5 from Kazakus was a big deal in this game.
Yeah. I really wonder, though, like the card draw option, I didn't see what the alternatives were at the time since we were talking about something else, but was there something better from the two instead of 2 cards? Because that's not something you'd value too much, I think, as Reno necessarily.
I think it was situational based on what Savjz's hand looked like, because there just wasn't much going on in his hand, and you do fall into that a little bit with Reno Lock, where you have a lot of answers, but they've not actually asked the questions yet, so your whole hand's just like ooze onto the board just because.
Yeah, in that case, it was like Imp Gang Boss, Refreshment Vendor. It was just stuff, and your stuff can help you get to the endgame points, but you got to dig for that as well.
Yeah.
All right, well, next game is going to be Reno Lock again from Savjz, last hero standing.
Draxus.
Versus Strifecro's own Reno Lock.
Yeah, and this matchup, it can get a little bit swingy at times. There's a few key early cards that really drive the matchup, and namely Mountain Giant and Twilight Drake. If either player has one of those and it's not matched, they can sometimes run away with the game. So with Strifecro having Mountain Giant here, it's really beneficial he has it going first as well, because he's the one driving the action with it. He gets 2 life taps in a row. And Savjz does pick up his own Mountain Giant, so I think we're off to the races here.
Yeah, and I think as well, the Doomsayer is a key card early on, because you can counter that turn 4 play of your opponent, or turn 5 depending. So yeah, you know, Doomsayer is pretty cool, and Dirty Rat as well that we
with
can see.
Doomsayer, I mean, if they play Doomsayer, you're probably smashing Dirty Rat.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Dirty Rat can do so many things because you rely on the battle cry effects of a lot of these minions and just them needing to be played when you want to play them, not for them to just jump out of your hand. I think the first time I got Dirty Rat ever since the expansion was pulled Reno straight out of my hand. And I just got cleared and I was like, I hate you, Rat.
I'm sorry, the mulligans were actually backwards on this one. So Strifecro is the one going second here with the coin.
Oh, I see.
Oh, we flipped, yeah.
Yeah, so he's actually fortunate enough to pick up his own Mountain Giant here. And the Ooze on turn 2 is really smart because this opens him up to get Mountain Giant right on turn 4. He doesn't have to skip any turns at all. And he gets the 3 extra damage when he plays it on turn 2 rather than life tapping. So this was good sequencing from Strifecro here. And Savjz the one getting his first Mountain Giant on board.
Do you think you have a Blast Crystal here? Because you can still play the Mountain Giant next turn.
It's a good question, but in this matchup, being behind a mana, you know, I'm not a huge expert in the Reno versus Reno mirror matches right now. So I definitely think it's worth consideration here.
Because my fear is because Savjz is already ahead, right? If you play your Giant, then he Blast Crystals yours. You're in a terrible, terrible situation.
Or if he just facelesses his.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, sure, yeah. There are multiple options.
I think Blast Crystal Potion, the only drawback to it is that you're going to be playing your Giant on the following turn, and he's going to be on 6 mana, which means even Siphon Soul's open at that point.
Yeah.
So it's just a little bit more difficult to get it to stick, but is that the goal? Like, do you really need this, like, your own Giant to stick around, or do you just need his gone?
And so early in the game, are you actually okay with him spending a turn, killing your Giant, so then you get the initiative on the board?
Yeah, after losing a crystal, getting the initiative back gives
it's
you
kind
back
of nuts.
that crystal.
Yeah.
You can see how tough it is.
Yeah.
You spent 70 seconds figuring out what sequence this is going to be, and he's going to settle on Mountain Giant. And Strifecro, this feels like a very Strifecro play to me, where he knows if he Blast Crystals Potion, he's 100% at a disadvantage. But if he just goes for the Mountain Giant here and it succeeds, sometimes he's successful with this. So I really like that he's gone for the Mountain Giant. And it's what I would expect Strifecro to do. If he went for Blast Crystal Potion here, I think that would be a heavy deviation from his normal play.
Yeah, and one of the cool things, too, is that if Savjz doesn't make the trade or doesn't have removal, then you can Blast Crystal on the back of that and keep your 8/8 alive.
Wow, summon a friendly minion, draw a card.
Wow, what a play.
And that's the power of the one-cost potion.
God.
You get situations like this. Because the polymorph effect's not there, he can more reliably end up with summon a friendly minion. That is an insane turn.
On 1 mana.
He basically
so
played. I mean, he basically played like a 5 mana blow up your guy, get a 3/3 here. Like the damage is so less relevant in this matchup than it is in most of the others. So Strifecro really fighting from behind here, but Sylvanas, this is about as good as it's going to get for him.
So I mean, if Onyx Bishop drew you a card,
Yeah,
pretty much. That's kind of crazy. But yeah, Savjz is one of the only ways that Strifecro's going to be able to fight back on the board here and try and deal with this Mountain Giant somehow. There isn't a silence effect. I know Spellbreaker is actually one of the cards that dips in and out based on more of, I think, personal preference more than anything. They see some players bring it and some not.
The list that I started playing with was Stan Sifka's list, and he was running a Spellbreaker in there, I believe. And I saw Purple playing the list as well, and they were favoring much more early game fighting and less pure endgame potential. And I think that was bringing him to some really strong spots for the most part. So Savjz giving a massive amount of respect to the Sylvanas here. He's going to drop the Doomsayer alongside the Dirty Rat here, so he doesn't pull a super key card, but he gets something still very valuable with the Abyssal Enforcer.
Yeah, and this is awesome as well, because if you look at the way the board looks at the moment is, okay, Doomsayer can be killed. He can Blast Crystal, right, if he really wants to. He can kill that off. But Sylvanas can't kill off itself. And also, even if he could like remove the rat and steal the Giant's an 8/2. So like Savjz has just presented him with like such an awkward Sylvanas turn that he's just not really going to gain much from it. And this Doomsayer might actually just completely lock out the turn for Strifecro here.
Yeah, the only thing I was really looking at in terms of clever plays was if Strifecro really wanted his own tempo back, he could Blast Crystal the Dirty Rat, attack into the Mountain Giant, steal the Doomsayer.
Right.
And try to buy the tempo back. But this situation, he's giving up so much to do that I think he's okay with just losing the initiative.
Yeah, Blast Crystal is so, like, you know, as we were talking about heavily on the turn 4 Blast Crystal into the big 4-drop threat, it's pretty good late game as well, because only 4 mana, you can squeeze it into a lot of later on turns and completely remove any huge threat from your opponent.
How many of these
pretty good to hold on
builds
to.
run Ragnaros anymore?
Very few.
Yeah.
Well, I think it depends on who you ask. Like, I know on ladder I've been seeing a lot more Ragnaros and Big Game Hunter to try to combat the mirror match specifically.
Yeah.
And that's a very powerful tool. And also Dirty Rat, not nearly as strong into Ragnaros as it would be into, say, Leroy or Faceless Manipulator. So I think a lot of win conditions have gone more towards the Alex Strauza and Ragnaros way to win versus just strictly the Leroy combo. Now, I don't know which one's better. I would tend to say Leroy, but here at this one, it's very clear that they want to get Leroy underway and try to deliver that final blow.
Yeah. They've been life tapping aggressively, which is usually what you do in the matchup anyway, or just about in any matchup with that combo in your deck. However, they've gone really all in on the life tap.
Yeah, I think you have to, because also what you've got to think about is when you play Emperor in the mirror, your opponent then has to just play around 20 life.
Yeah.
Like, at all times. They just have to. Or put up taunts or, you know, play around the combo at some point. So it puts your opponent in a really awkward position, and that can actually make you play very inefficiently, which is something that's pretty impactful in this matchup as well.
Yeah, you can see how valuable the life tap actually is right here. Savjz not playing his Twilight Drake, and instead going for a weaker play on board so that he can keep life tapping. It is that
those
important.
pieces, yeah.
And it does keep his Bruiser out of something like Hellfire range, assuming that was a thing, or Shadow Bolt range.
Yeah, this turn, now it's starting to get really tricky. I think Strifecro is starting to really lose the board position here. Again, ways to make it back up, but he's yet to find a position where he can grab initiative. And that is a big problem for Strifecro.
Yeah, and this is one of those hands we discussed earlier and why the card draw from Kazakus can actually be pretty powerful, because his hand just doesn't really do much onto the board. He's just going to fall behind. He's going to go for Kern off the taunt there, using the coil to cycle.
So he still has the Peddler life tap play here, which
it just feels so weak.
Yeah. I mean, the alternatives aren't exactly amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, you
yeah.
play a 3/3 into this, which, you know.
I mean, you look at how good Savjz's hand is, and he's been life tapping.
Yeah.
Look at how not really good Strifecro's hand is. He needs to life tap.
Oh, second PO.
Now, second PO is really interesting because that gives him a different amount of burst potential. That's one of the ways that you can kind of get your opponent in this matchup is when Dark Peddler brings a second PO here. Now his combo potential with full is 28 from hand.
And also what it can do as well is you can use your original PO as, for example, a Shadow Flame, if you need it, to really snap yourself back into the matchup. And then a lot of the time they presume you don't have a second one for the combo, and then you burst it for 20 out of nowhere. So it's a lot of tricky stuff you can do.
Yeah, depending on how liberal you were with the power overwhelming, right? Like if you use it in a last-ditch situation, they'll assume you don't, you have another one.
Yeah.
You don't have another one, but if you've used it just liberally for almost no value, then they'll probably assume.
Yeah, it's if you use it when you're blatantly behind
Right.
and you need to like flip the board basically. So yeah, it's just a nice additional option you can have.
Emperor,
Turns
no
continue to get hard. Now he's facing down a 4-10. And
Last crystal.
yeah,
Let's do it.
it's honestly not that bad
No,
here.
I mean-
This might be as good as it's actually going to get.
How many more targets are left, right? There's mainly Mountain Giant. There's the Abyssal Enforcer, which can be a decent Blast Crystal target. But the 410, you're never going to kill it, right?
Let's get him a life tap as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important facet for Strifecro here.
Yeah. So not having seen Emperor feels safe enough not to need to top yourself up. Not that you could beat that anyway. Emperor Thorson needs to come out for either of the players. I feel like whoever picks it up first is going to be putting his opponent on the fear clock. They're going to have to start taunting up every single turn as much as they can.
Yeah, I would almost expect there to be a life tap from Savjz here prior to the turn because of that. Because with Abyssal Enforcer in hand, he's got a lot of options. And so he is going to go for the Mortal Coil first, so he wants 9 mana available to make a decision with. And so this, I imagine this is an Abyssal Enforcer. I don't really see another way it could be anything else. So drop down to 17, but he once again has the board. He's got Strifecro down to 16. And with Abyssal Enforcer out, Strifecro has to think about dying without Emperor being played.
Exactly, and on 17, you're extremely safe without the Emperor going down from your opponent. But yeah, this really sets up a lot of pressure onto Strifecro. Does draw a Kazakus though, so he could go for the 1 or 5 mana potion. And try and, if he goes for the 5, try and like polymorph the Abyssal and then try and gain some tempo there. Because you can polymorph and then resummon 2 minions that died this game, which would be a really nice turn for him.
At 1 mana, you could even do it for Resummon, then Argus, both of them.
Yeah, I mean, the mana actually being a big difference here as well. I mean, if he goes for Brand Kazakus, he's got 2 mana left over instead of 3. That means he can't drop the Earthring Farseer. It means that Mind Control Tech can't come down just to add pressure to the board.
He can play 2 of the 1 mana Kazakus potions though.
So here, I think he
Double 3 damage.
I think he's going for a 5 here.
Yeah,
so
there we go. So he got the sheep if he wants it. I like it because it just completely removes the threat.
And summon 2 friendly minions that die.
Oh my god.
That's got to be better than a 5/5 on average because he's got the Mountain Giant in there.
Yeah,
but he just lost
got
2
the
imps,
imp and
though.
2 imps.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
But there's Sylvanas in there too.
2 friendly minions. Here we go.
Oh, there's Sylvanas as well. Yeah, you got to go for it.
Okay,
I'll take
that's,
that.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's about as good as it's going to get. You just killed a 6/6 and got 8 power on board.
Yeah.
I would play that card in my deck.
I would play 5 of them.
You can't. This is Hearthstone. You can only play 2 Nux.
You don't brand enough.
But
That's what Tavern Brawls
you would
are
put
for.
other cards in your deck
That
that
do the same
create
thing.
those effects. Yeah, there you go.
I play Polymorph with like, yeah. So
Gonna
Savjz-
brew the Kazakus.
I've
Oh,
actually
God.
played Reno Priest and Brewmaster, which is interesting because in the Reno mirrors, it gives you like a crazy edge.
Oh, yeah.
It's bad against most aggro decks, but when
You know,
it comes to the Reno
when-
mirror matches,
When I saw Reynad playing the N'Zoth with Brew and the Emperor, I was like, wow, that's actually really scary. I would not want to fight that as a control deck. And he was mentioning that it wasn't quite strong enough to get the job done. And I'm like, when 2 N'Zoths is not strong enough to get the job done, like,
yeah.
that seems weird
Yeah,
to me.
because in that match, like he barely won. Like he got it off and then still just about won, as opposed to as you
Blow
said,
up.
you'd imagine the second N'Zoth just crushes your opponent, and it didn't. It's crazy.
Yeah, looking like we're seeing a Shadow Flame here, and Savjz just needs to just do anything to get initiative back. And so the Shadow Flame, not really a huge card in this matchup other than for Sylvanas. So being able to get some pretty extreme value with it here, I think is really important because Strifecro, again, he's feeling the heat of that combo potential. So realistically, he could be playing Reno. And if he's playing Reno into this, that means that there's already a challenge on board for it.
Yeah, this is the problem here. Twilight Drake and Reno looks really nice, but then you just leave a 6/1 on the board. So
Yeah, it's probably, I imagine Hellfire
Yeah.
is in Strifecro's mind right now, like Hellfire Reno. But again,
Would you?
he's giving up life tap if he's
Do you
doing
need to Reno is the question, right?
Well, no,
I think he does.
Okay.
Because you would die to a Hellfire, like Leroy PO Hellfire, for instance.
He also just died to Leroy Faceless.
Yeah.
Just 12 damage. So I think he's got a Reno here. And then this is the first time that Strifecro's had initiative in the game. So that also a big deal.
So counter Reno here to equalize the initiative, but at the very least, Strifecro's not playing from behind at this point. Like, this is like the second game within the game.
Yeah, now suddenly the turns look like Strifecro's going to start taking a lead here. I mean, Bran, Defender of Argus, looking
Mighty
really,
fine.
Extremely
Yeah.
powerful, yeah.
But Savjz does play Twisted Nether, so he has that emergency switch if he really needs to.
Yeah, but this is a good time to force that, though. I mean, you're using
Yeah.
Brand, you're getting value from it, you're setting up a board position, and you have Twilight Drake in hand. So if Savjz chooses to Twisting Nether on the following turn, you're still staying with initiative. And how much value is Savjz really getting? You're kind of forcing it with cards that already did their job.
Yeah.
Yeah, the brand not really having anything else to do here. You've already played Kazakus, so there's really not much else you're going to be branding besides maybe Earthling Farseer to heal yourself up. But since you're 30 at this point, it's more about finding Leroy, finding the Emperor,
Yeah.
than staying alive
And
through health gain.
I feel like there's a lot less merit to using the Twilight Drake alongside the Brand as well, because you haven't seen Blast Crystal Potion
Yeah.
or Siphon Soul from your opponent.
Yeah, I was wondering then whether it was actually not worth tapping. You could do the Bran Argus. You could trade the two Renos together and then heal the Reno back up. But then the problem is you're going very wide on the board, so that if a Twisting Nether does come down, then you're just chucking out more value anyway.
This is really interesting. So Strifecro going to go with Twilight Drake and Defender of Argus. So what is he holding that Brand for?
MC Tech with Dirty Rat? We haven't seen that yet.
Now that's a
Ooh.
good combo.
We haven't seen it yet.
I would venture to say that's exactly what he's holding it
You
for.
get the Leroy out of that hand, no combos coming in.
I mean, if he offsets the combo, he's got Jiraxxus.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of the time that just ends the game because although people are playing Jiraxxus as like a sort of side win condition to a certain extent, as you can see so far, the whole matchup is playing around that combo.
Wow, this is actually like kind of a brilliant play because Strifeco's going for more of a multi-turn setup here where he gets to keep initiative and get more value from his weaker cards. Like Demon Wrath is way weaker than Brand.
Yeah.
And so when he plays it this way, he's trying to set up a bigger kill on the rest of what Savjz is going to play on the following turn. This is really smart.
Yeah, I said, there's nothing else to brand, but the truth is, when you have MC Tech in hand, the only thing missing is the Dirty Rat.
Yeah.
So, makes a lot of sense.
Oh, there's Emperor though.
No Faceless yet for Savjz.
He does have Leroy and PO though, so
Yeah.
this is probably the Emperor turn.
Yeah, the thing as well is you only ever need to hit one piece of that combo because realistically you've never really got the other cards to fill in that random 1 mana or 2 mana regardless. You normally either kill them or you don't. Gonna see the Emperor come down now, get those reductions, and that is a pretty sizable reduction in Savjz's hand now.
Sending a telegraph.
Yep.
I have combo pieces. Are you ready?
Wow, how important is that draw?
In the current board state, he has played a Blast Crystal Potion, so that is the other removal that he had.
Frustration here is he just wants that 1 extra damage
I
would be
know.
nice.
If he could
like-
just find Dirty Rat here, if he could just.
And I think that's what Strifeco's thinking about here too, is look at the deck size. I mean, we're super low at this point. Strifeco's got 6 cards left, so it's really easy for him to consistently find something he's looking for. That's not a bad one either. This is a lot of options. I don't know how Strifecro really turned this around.
You could use a PO with that Defensive Argus, since you already have another one in hand.
and you
That's a good
push
point as well.
But
Yeah, you push for 12 as well.
Yeah, and you're setting up your counter kill very soon. And you're forcing him to Twisting Nether. You do have the 4/5 in the Bruiser. You don't need to Shadow Flame if you don't want to.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he wants to. I mean, the Twilight Drake's got 11 health. You might as well
Yeah.
use it at some point.
Might as well use it for
And
something.
the thing as well is because of the 2 POs, if you can hold on to them, Emperor comes down, then it would have opened up the thing for more burst. But
28,
because
yeah.
but because he's used one now,
everything's
everything's calmed down again, and we're playing a much more normal match.
Doesn't even add the second-rate Bruiser here. So the range here to Savjz has to look like that Strifecro's really close to combo. Like potentially all 3 pieces in his hand and just a bunch of utility. When he's not playing these smaller minions, I think Savjz very much expects him to play those at times.
Yeah, and then you start playing defensively. You set up the Shambler, maybe you go for the
Helps against Dirty Rat.
Fleshman Vander, yeah. I think he's already played. Is Savjz the one that played Dirty Rat with the Doomslayer early in the game?
Oh,
I
you're right.
believe
Yeah,
so,
he
right?
did.
uh, oh, uh, 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 He's the player that played it, and I think Strifecro is the one with the Dirty Rat left in his deck. I mean, you do need to get something out of that brand at this point if you're Strifecro.
Yeah, and Savjz just fully respecting the board potential here from Strifecro.
There's the Emperor.
That's a pretty big one.
So if you tap, you're dead to combo. If you go tap Emperor, you're dead to combo. So you'd have to go Emperor, Earth Ring, Farseer this turn, perhaps?
I think that's fine,
Yeah.
because now you're presenting 2 minions to the board that can push that extra little bit of damage to maybe help out with the combo. Because he still needs to get him like to 20, right? So he needs the Emperor or the or something else to live.
You know, a really big deal here actually is that Strifecro, did he use the Power Overwhelming from Dark Peddler?
He has used.
Yeah, he used the
Dark
Power
Peddler.
Overwhelming from Dark Peddler, so that actually could be a little bit of a misstep showing Savjz that he still has Power Overwhelming left.
Yeah, because I don't actually think there's any reason, even in like the most obscure circumstances, that it would be better to play the Peddler, right?
Yeah, I
Because
think
you always
wanna
want the hidden
disguise
information.
info. That's true.
Especially when it's literally game winning, you know, in terms of the extra damage at least.
So Hellfire here, so Dirty Rad's Dream is dead, but the minion count was never going to go up to 4 at this point. You've already seen pretty much everything.
Only 1 damage away from potentially killing him with a combo.
Another Power Overwhelming.
So that's now 14 from hand.
And a Soulfire is an option as well.
Oh
Wow,
my goodness.
18 from hand.
It's not bad.
No, this is, well, it's bad news for Strifecro, but holy moly.
Yeah, this is looking kind of grim. So do you have to go for a Bruiser, Earthen Ring, Shadow Flame on the 3? I mean, you want to kill Bran. Does it matter at this point, is the question.
I think this point he's just worried about pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as well, you kind of, the taunt is way more valuable than killing Bran, because you need just a speed bump for one of those, you know, like if you're expecting the Leroy combo. Goes for the tap. Can push himself out again, of course, with the Farseer.
You can Bran, Farseer, and Second Rate Bruiser if you feel like it.
Do you ever want the Doomsayer down, though? Behind the Bruiser? Because you just want to get the damage off the board, right? You need something to just completely clear it off.
Strifecro's strictly looking for just a way to kill Savjz at this point.
Yeah.
So his main concern, I think, is much less about value and much more about how's the best way to live and find the piece that I need. And to me, that looks like Shadow Flame. Because if he leaves this up, he's very easily dead.
So he seems to be going for the minion-based play with 6 health restoration with Earthling Farseer.
Is he Sun Furying? Is he using Doomsayer? He's not using either of those.
He's already seen the Shadow Flame from the opponent.
Oh, there's the Faceless,
that's
the
game,
last
right?
card.
That is it with the Faceless Manipulator. Last card in the deck. You can double buff that Leroy for 28 burst.
Crazy as well, because Strife must have known that was his last card, right? So
Yes, like-
he knew combo was coming, 100%.
And that's
Did not Sun Fury.
Yeah. Interesting.
I mean, you could have gotten Nethered, right?
That's
Oh,
fine.
yeah, but
If
that's
you get
one more
Nethered,
turn,
yeah,
yeah.
you have a turn to just draw lethal now. I think Strifecro just misstepped at the end here.
Those long Reno games.
He has to know that those are Savjz's remaining cards.
Well, a lot of the time in the matchup, even on just a base level, all you care about the combo pieces, right? You care about when Emperor's played,
Yep.
how many cards are in hand, how early, and in general, if Emperor comes down, you know something is in hand, and then all you're bothered about is if those pieces get
You keep
played, because
track-
it changes the match,
Right, you keep track of where the cards go. Like, what were those cards? Did he keep 3 or 4 of them? If so, those are probably the combo pieces.
Yeah.
Or at least 2 of them are. So.
Yeah, so what other AoE is he worried about there? I mean, Twisting Nether's the last piece that Savjz could have. So,
And he could not really develop anything behind Twisting Nether anyway, so it just hands the initiative over.
Yeah, I'm actually curious if Second Rate Bruiser there is supposed to ever not be Shadow Flamed, and then just have the brand with Sun Fury just to try to offset
For
as
the
much
2
as possible.
minions on the board against any type of incoming damage. Yeah.
Even if he Shadow Flamed the Earthering Farseer.
No, the
instead-
Bruiser he could have.
Yeah, but he could have Shadow Flamed the
just
Farseer,
leave it to one Bran.
not played the Bran, and 1 taunt is enough versus a Bran and 2 Leroys, right? Because
Sure.
the Bran can't get through. So the taunt effectively soaks up 14 damage then, which suddenly isn't enough.
Yeah, I think a bit of an oversight from Strifecro there, and that could be really costly because now Savjz on match point. He's still got Reno. This is a deck that he's incredibly practiced with. Strifecro going to be rolling with what looks like a mid-range Druid here with Aya Blackpaw in it, so some
Druid?
Jade element with 2 hexes.
Looks like a shame. Looks like a shaman to me, Admirable, but
The Jade Golems will destroy you. Yeah, I'd like to bring attention to the Jade Lightning, though. Generally, as a card, I think a lot of people were not too sure how to evaluate the Jade Golem plan, and you know, thought this card would be a lot worse than something like Crackle. As it turns out, the card has behaved a lot like Crackle.
And that it's always 4.
Always, yeah, exactly. It's always like a consistent source of damage, I think. And the fact that you're getting bored on top of it in mid-range decks is also a lot better. What do you think about mid-range Jade versus aggro Jade?
It's a tough one, to be honest. I've played mostly the aggro variants and like almost every aggro variant you can even think of, because there's so many versions.
That's how
knocking
Raven
around.
plays the game.
Yeah.
He crafted a golden patches on day 1 and like likes to go on Twitter and go, patches, man, that card's disgusting. I can't believe people just play those patches cards. And
I
sit at home and
crafted
like,
patches and just drew it turn 1 every game. So that's why I don't play it anymore. But no, like the mid range is a tough one. Just I've not played it too much, but when I played against it, it seems pretty powerful, especially versus decks like Reno, where you just see the power of Hex. Right, just running Hex alone is actually kind of insane.
Yeah, it's pretty insane here. I mean, this is effectively dealing 9 points of damage to this Twilight Drake. He's saving health on his minions, and now he's starting to push. And with that Hex, Savjz can start getting a read that there's perhaps a little bit less reach from Strifecro's build. You know, typically the aggro builds, they play Lava Burst. They don't play Hex.
Yep.
And so when he sees that, he might have an opportunity to slow down here a little bit, but his hand is... It's going to take some time to get there. It's a lot of 6 costs plus cards in hand.
Yeah, and there's even probably a lot of cards in Strifecro's deck that can be a real pain. Even just hero power into Stoneclaw Totem can really mess with the combo. There's Feral Spirits as well. It's kind of nuts.
Honestly, we might have gotten ahead of ourselves here calling it mid-range.
Yeah, it looks like it's just the typical aggro, quote-unquote, with Pirates, except it's sprinkling in Azure Drakes instead of format of 7/7s.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have been cutting out the 7/7s just to put in some more card draw in the form of Azure Drakes.
Yeah, well, there's like 4 slots though, right? Because there's the Azure Drakes and the Hexes in the deck.
So it looks like Lava Burst and Flame Wreath.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah, it's a tough one now, at the moment to say like, oh, what's an aggro deck? Because there are a lot of decks that are just running the Pirate and like starting package because it's so powerful in itself, and then just having a sort of more normal style.
Okay, when he Jade Lightnings the Sim Gang boss, that's going to tell me that this is not
aggro.
Yeah. Like that play could very easily be reserved for pushing the final points of damage here. And since Savjz is going to be under such enormous pressure anyway, Strifecro's main concern is setting up the strongest board possible versus a potential Reno.
Yeah, and Savjz kind of has to do everything he can to not Reno this turn. Because although he's under a lot of pressure, when you Reno on a full board and can't deal with that board, you're just going to take all that damage back again, more often than not.
Yeah, so looking for the Peddler to be a big impact here.
Yep. Yeah, that
Mortal
coil.
Let's say it's about as good as it's going to get.
Shifter.
Shifter might be it. Another Reno would be good.
I think he's just got to get on
Another
board.
Reno.
Like, the Arcane Anomaly does contest both of these minions at the moment. So I think that's a realistic option.
Yeah. You just go for the damage, right? As much as possible.
Yeah, if he's got Maelstrom Portal, that's one of the minions you don't really care about going away.
Yeah, Thunderbluff Valiant in here. This is kind of the more Strifecro build as well, which is like fight for the board and then have a way to scale in your endgame.
Yeah.
Plus, I've been seeing a lot of strong players just kind of move towards the mid-range versions lately. They've started to see where the metagame's going, and so you can fit the right tools in to control the aggro builds. Aggro builds typically reign supreme at the start because control decks don't really know what they need to bring to fight against.
Right.
Because there's just a ton of different aggro decks.
Yeah, aggro's normally, at least on a surface level, just easier to build, right? You probably already know 25 of the cards off the top of your head anyway, and then it's just tinkering, which we've seen a lot of tinkering in Shaman over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, step 1 is you type in Pirates.
And then you just add 5 of them at most.
Yeah, and then step 2 is you type in Charge, and then step 3 is you type in 4 damage.
There
And
you
then
go,
from
guys,
there, you have about 20 of your cards in the deck.
Yeah.
Admirable's Guide to Aggro, freebie for you there.
I wish it were off the mark. It's not. It's just too on point. It's too close to home, man.
Yeah, Tunnel Truck's probably going to rip here as well. And just get the board position as under control as possible and start to utilize the fact that he's got plenty of ways to pull ahead.
I think, I guess with Thunderbluff Valiant, you might value the
Oh.
more, but I really like keeping the Trog up since you're going to be getting...
Yeah, this is really interesting. He actually got the read last turn that Savjz didn't have Mortal Coil.
Yeah.
So it is more important to actually leave the Tunnel Truck.
Yeah, more damage.
Yeah.
If you're playing Totem Golem anyway next turn, because you can't play Valiant and buff it anyway, this might just be a slight bit better.
This allows him to trade up into the Reno when he has Overload. That's really smart.
It gives him a 6 damage source with the weapon and the 4-attack Trog, yeah.
It's cool.
Well done, Strifecro.
Yeah. This turn looks a little bit straightforward to me. Just to me, it's Tunnel Trog, Totem, or Tunnel Golem after the Tunnel Trog, of course, and then Hero Power, trade up, keep going.
Yeah, it sets up for the Thunder Bluff as well for the following turn.
I mean, you do commit a lot into a possible Twisting Nether, and a lot of the range, a lot of the cards in Savjz's hand are either combo pieces that he's been holding on to because he hasn't been playing too many minions on board necessarily. So a lot of these things are probably AoE removal. There's a Hellfire possibility in there. So the more you commit, the sketchier it becomes.
Yeah, so he's going to hold on to Tunnel Trog because of that.
Yeah, I think this is fine. Something else you could have considered as well is, depending on what the rest of Strifecro's deck looks like, and any sort of reach as well, he could have actually just gone for the Azure Drake trade with the weapon and then just drop Iron to the board just to create that awkward board state against AoE.
Yeah.
But this is, the much more straightforward and probably overall better option in general.
The only thing this would tell me is that Bloodlust is not in Strifecro's build, because if he drew Bloodlust there, it wouldn't have been lethal.
Yeah.
So here, now he gets the Tunnel Trog alongside the Aya. And so really big benefit for not overextending. Knows that if Savjz has Twisting Nether, very likely to use it there.
Yeah, and even with Hellfire or Abyssal Enforcer, it's still a very good clear. Hence the Tunnel Trog being kept, right? It has 3 health. That's exactly the amount of health that you'd be worried about.
Wow.
Abyssal Enforcer.
Just a casual 9 power on
Yeah,
2 cards.
let's do it. Kill one of these for...
Just 4 extra behind when you kill the Aya. Not a huge deal.
And Savjz just hovered over Sylvanas for a second there, just working out if there's any funky stuff he can do to deal with the Aya more than anything.
Puts a lot of tension on the board, so that's worth something.
Yeah, the problem here is that Savjz has seen Hex, so he knows there's a second copy available at some point, and if he goes for just a strong board tension play, how does he get punished by Hex so much that it's not recovering?
Yeah. So the card on the left in Strifecro's hand, right? If I'm Savjz, I'm assuming it's something like Maelstrom Portal, possibly, or Lightning Storm. There's a lot of cards in that deck that aren't going to be Hex.
Yeah, but he has had it in his hand since since actually turn 1.
Yeah, and his first Hex was fairly liberal.
Yeah. Yeah, it was more of like a tempo Hex
than
anything else. And there's still Strifecro's still got a lot of juice in the tank. He's got a Thunderbluff Valiant, so he can actually spend a few turns just hero powering once he deals with this Sylvanas. It's not going to be too much of an issue. He's seen so much AoE already from Savjz.
Yeah, I think one of the concerns here is that AoE. If he uses the Aya here, does he lose too much on board in the face of AoE?
Oh, there we go. It's going to be the second Hex.
I mean, he did get the spell damage totem, right? So
yeah, I mean that's a huge deal too. It makes the Spirit Claws active, so I imagine he's going to preserve the Aya here. Yeah, I mean he didn't see a silence from Savjz in.
Did we see Patches?
Either of the prior 2 games. Yeah, Patches.
Okay.
Patches ripped.
Traded into an imp. I forget where it was.
Yeah, it traded into an imp.
Okay.
Yep, and then once again, pretty straightforward here. I mean, Abyssal Enforcer's not really getting that much better.
Yeah, it's kind of great. Aya's going to bite the dust, leaving a golem behind. And this is the weird thing I feel about the golem or the Jade stuff in the Shaman deck is that they never get crazy, but they're just more annoyances than anything else. With like Jade Lightning, the claws, it's just generally just like, oh, these are just extra minions I'm going to just leave behind on the board.
Yeah, so just going for...
He wants that spell damage totem, though.
Is this trading over the Abyssal? I imagine it is to preserve the Thunderbluff Valiant.
Yeah, he has to, right?
I don't know if he has to, but...
I mean, you haven't seen Shadow Flame, you haven't seen Demon of Wrath, you haven't seen Hellfire, so you're still...
Strifecro's in a really bad spot here.
Yeah, I think, my worry is if these minions get cleared up, well, his hand is empty. Like, how does Shaman from 0 cards actually deal with Reno when Savjz has got plenty, in terms of hand size? Like, how do you even claw that back? Because it isn't the aggro deck. There's no Lava Burst in hand. Maybe there's Lightning Bolts in there to help, but from 19, it's just not enough.
Yeah, this is... I mean, I don't even know, like, maybe Ragnaros can get him out of this, but Ragnaros is no longer even close to found in the mid-range Shaman builds.
He's going to go for the trade.
Especially not the Jade one, too.
Yeah, pretty much needs that Thunderbluff to live to just give him a chance to actually closing out this game here. This could be a 3-0 sweep.
And it's not going to live.
Oof. I mean, I'll say that, though. The mid-range Shaman build is not the one you want to build to bring against Reno, right? Like, it's just not the deck you want to line up against.
Well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, Savjz did have a really strong hand this game. Sure. He had played plenty of AoE. He had the Reno Jackson. He had Twisting Nether. he had all the tools to get out of it, but that's part of the Reno deck is that it has tools to beat everything.
And the thing is, as well, when you think like, oh, Reno's one of Highlander deck, right? One of every card, but you still run like 4 to 5 AoE cards, which doesn't matter if they're slightly different, they still pretty much get the job done.
Wow, and so we're even seeing a play aside from the Hellfire, which I'm also really surprised about.
I suppose what else is there left to Blast Crystal? Hellfire hurts himself, which might open up for some kind of, slightly easier comeback for Strifecro. So I don't mind this. Sets up the Brand. The Brand is more than likely not going to get cleared up unless the spell damage totem comes out.
As spell damage totem, though, it's kind of annoying. But you do get the Hellfire value here. The Brand with the Hellfire lets you deal with a 5 health minion. So
yeah, I think Savjz is just looking for a spot to try to push damage through. I mean, his hand is fairly weak, all things considered.
I mean, he's only 1 Emperor away from just winning the game once those taunts go, though.
The old Brand Leroy combo.
Just needs to use needs to draw mind control tech as well.
you just got to PO it.
Those sweet whelp steals.
You're laughing now, but there's no Maelstrom Portal in Strifecro's hand. There's nothing, in fact.
No, he'll draw Maelstrom Portal.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah, you know how Shaman works?
Yeah.
If they don't have it, they draw it.
Shadow
Well,
Flame. Okay.
Reno Log does that as well, it seems.
So straightforward clear. And
Doomsayer.
then just Doomsayer looks like
I like it.
Get back the initiative here. I mean, at 10 life, not necessarily the safest.
A lot of respect there, but
Yeah, that'll do it, too. And that's going to, I mean, the Doomsayer here guarantees himself that he protects from any sort of weird interaction, say like an ancestral knowledge into Leroy Rockbiter weapon, and then sets up the lethal with Leroy Faceless. A 3-0 sweep for Savjz.
Savjz. Very, very well done. I mean, Strifecro, we said, he was the most prepared, but I think there was a slight, in the mirror match, slip up at the very end, where he might have been able to close out the game had he maybe gotten the extra card draw.
Yeah, he could have given himself an extra turn to actually draw his own combo. And I think that not playing around it correctly put him in a position where he was guaranteed to die to what Savjz's remaining range was. So that is, I think, the really only misstep in this series.
Yeah, it was actually kind of interesting though to look at the way both players approached their lineup building. We didn't get to see the priest from Savjz at all. We didn't even get to see the druid.
He's hiding that knowledge.
Yeah.
The priest. Savjz, come over. Come and get involved. We'll shift up. I think this is the headset you can use, man. Oh, a lot of crackling. There you go, man.
Man, 3-0
I'll just sit like this if
set.
that's okay.
Yo. 3-0 set. That's got to feel good to come back to the tournament scene and pulling off that way.
Unretired. It was a lot of fun. I think I had some nice draws too. And Strifecro in the first game, he missed the wild growth with the druid. I was feeling pretty confident in those matches.
Yeah. So how do you feel about J-Druid versus Reno Lock? I know there's a bit of debate in the community about who has the edge. I think J-Druid usually has it, but in this case...
I personally feel like I'd rather be the Reno lock there. I feel
Interesting.
really confident in the matchup, but it certainly can go wrong. And sometimes, like, if you can't set your opponent low enough for the combo, it can be really hard to, because the druid obviously has like an infinite late game. But with the Leroy combo, 20 damage, it's usually kind of not that difficult in the early game to kind of set that up and then maybe be able to clear board many enough times that you can actually finish the game after the no taunts.
Yeah, I think as long as the druid doesn't like literally chain drop Jades onto you, you should have enough time to get hold of that combo. Right?
Yeah, but it's I wouldn't say that it's like heavily Reno lock favored, and I think it depends who you ask. It might be a druid favorite. I don't know the stats, but I feel confident playing it anyway.
Reno players are really starting to fit into the category of the rogue players, where if you ask the
Yeah.
Reno
I will
players,
be
are you
favored?
it's always the Reno, and if you ask the rogue, it's always the rogue. And I was actually talking to Amnesiac about this, and I asked him about that specific scenario, and he goes, well, if I'm playing the Reno, I think I'm favored, and if I'm playing the rogue, I think I'm favored.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the matchup's just Amnesiac favored then.
Amnesiac's got the edge. It's not even a matter of decks. Anyway, well done, Savjz. Good luck in your future runs. You have 2 decks we haven't seen yet, so hopefully those are also just as cool. You seem pretty confident with the deck, though. You seem to pilot it.
With the Reno lock, yeah, but there's in the other decks, there's certainly some surprises coming up that weren't revealed just yet.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we
But,
can't wait.
Yeah, I think I got the Reno locks covered. Let's just say that.
All right, cheers. Well, we'll be taking a short break, guys, before we move on to the next series of the day. Stay tuned for some more SeatStory Cup dank memes.